The floor is yours. So when I spoke to Jeff, I know that a couple of you have meetings definitely by 1. So I said, we'll just limit this to 15 minutes. If at 15 minutes we're not done, we'll just figure out how to follow up later. So I'm going to actually put us on the timer here, which we don't usually do, but probably should do more often. So sorry, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much, Greg, and the council for allowing me to address you. As a council, we have addressed some important issues, and to be part of this body with you has been one of the highlights in my 29-year career as a special education paraprofessional. In the last few months, however, there has been some very disappointing matters for support staff, and I hope this body can give pause to consider a few things. As important contributors to schools and students, we don't feel respected or acknowledged. As evidence, during COVID, many articles and stories have been shared that never mention support staff, story after story, article after article. The struggle for teachers and admins are acknowledged without mentioning the parallel struggle for support staff. This is not just me or my perception. I have spoken with paraprofessionals all over our state and throughout the country. The 2020 budget fix highlights this matter. $500 will be given to teachers as hazard pay. Do they deserve it? Absolutely. Of course they do. But all educators deserve it. As one paraprofessional from Michigan told me, their superintendent said to the support staff, if they wanted to get paid, they would come into the building and serve meals directly to the cars without any PPE given to them. All the support staff did show up and perform that duty. The district's teachers were at home developing their online programs. A huge job for sure, and I am not diminishing or downplaying that at all. How do you think every single support staff across the state feels right now? And then when the checks are delivered, the teachers will be talking about it to the further chagrin of support staff and the value of their positions. This will only serve to further minimize the work they do in the building and on the buses for their districts. How many schools have elaborate celebration on National Teachers Day? What do they do for Paraprofessional Appreciation Day? From the paras I've spoken to, not much. In 2021, it's April 2nd. I was talking to a superintendent a couple years ago. It was a month or two after Michigan schools had closed for a week because of cold weather and snow. He was proud to tell me how the district had put together food and supply bags for the support staff to come in and pick up. Think about that. They are hourly and they are not getting paid, and their wages are so low. The district performed a wonderful gesture, but the paraprofessionals had to swallow their pride and go into the school and pick up donated supplies. On this council, when presented a pathway to help elevate paraprofessionals, experienced a diversified group of educators, and address the teacher shortage, in the end, it could not see its way to be supported. After working on that for over 2 years, it was devastating, about as much as seeing the support staff not offered hazard pay. The paraprofessionals, the teachers' pathways, checked every box we were tasked to do. A student cadet program was preferred, a great program, but yet again, leaving behind experienced educators already working in the schools every day. All educators are not shown the respect they deserve. For support staff, it is even worse. Districts and teachers will say, we cannot do this without you, but when it gets down to it, we are repeatedly overlooked. Support staff deserve to be respected and acknowledged for the important work they provide students, districts, and their communities. I know that you on this council feel the same way. What I am asking this body to consider is to allow for a recommendation to stand on its own to be given to Governor Whitmer and her policy directors, simply asking them in supporting and promoting bills 5958 and 5959, the Paraprofessionals to Teachers Pathways Grant Act, and the Paraprofessionals to Teachers Pathway Grant Fund Act. The passage of these bills with an appropriate allocation would go a long way in showing some support for the least among us in education. I appreciate each of you for giving me the chance to read this and say this to you.
Greg, can you please read for me one more time the request? I didn't get it verbatim and I'd like to get it verbatim.
So what I'm asking is, I don't know if it's a recommendation or an or a resolution, but I would like I'm asking for a recommendation to stand its own to be given to Governor Whitmer and her policy director, simply asking them in supporting and promoting bills 59, 58, and 59, 59, which is the Paraprofessionals to Teachers Pathways Grant Act and the Paraprofessional to Teachers Pathway Grant Fund Act.
There was something about the part I missed is the financial support, financial allocation.
So the passage of these bills with an appropriate allocation would go a long way in showing support for the least among us in education.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Jeff. So Jeff and I spoke, there are kind of two different ways I think we could approach this. So Jeff, jump in here if I'm getting this wrong, but I think one possibility is that Jeff kind of shares what he just read, which is, to me, sounds pretty good to go. With us, we kind of have a chance to look at it between now and September, and then we can vote after having reviewed it. Jeff, is that what we had kind of talked about, or is that timeline too slow?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but I just didn't know if on my end, if I needed to write up a very specific thing for us to vote on, or what the council would like it to look like if I was, so I don't know really how to do this going forward. If the council even liked what I read and wanted to proceed, I guess we'd have to talk about that.
Okay, yeah, so we don't need action right now. We could vote in September. So at this point, I'll kind of mute myself again if we want to have some discussion. We're at about 10 minutes left, so we have some time to figure out what we want to do with Jeff's proposal. Well, before I mute myself, sorry. Jeff, I'm going to tell you, I was watching my local school board's meeting just this past week, because we still don't have our plans past October yet. But my principal in Williamston High School, when he was given credit for making sure families were fed during the summer, he went out of his way. He said, look, that's not me. That's our parapros doing all that work. So I think that what you're saying is actually understood by leaders in our schools. And, we have Mandy and Ramont here, who I'm sure can testify to that too. So, I want you to know that I think those of us in the buildings and in leadership roles get it. But what you're saying is that us getting it isn't good enough, right? You need support and pathways and to be treated equitably. So anyway, I'll mute myself if we want to have that discussion.
And Greg, I appreciate that, but I can pull up about 1,000 articles that don't mention support staff one time. So I get what you're saying, but I can tell you that during this time, it has really highlighted the fact that support staff, and in your building, congratulations. I think that's great. But I'm telling you, from the support staff I've talked to over the state, that would be the minority, not the majority. And again, that's not just my perception. That's from people that I've talked to in councils and in meetings all over the state and all over the country. Right now, parapros, the anxiety for teachers is immense, and I get that. But right now, support staff have anxieties over keeping their jobs. I just read an article the other day. There's a district is looking at laying off a bunch of support staff, include paraprofessionals and transportation, because they're going virtual, so they don't need the bus drivers. In my home city, they laid off 12 paraprofessionals. So my larger point is that, I guess, giving congratulations and all that is, at your board meeting is good. And I hate talking like this because I don't know what this sounds like, but I appreciate that. But this is something that these bills are something that we can actually do that's tangible. And imagine the gut punch. And just put yourself in my position as the only parapro on this. You guys are all getting $500. I was in there every day, and we're not getting it. And then the double gut punch is going to come in 2 or 3 months when the checks are actually delivered.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to really, dig deep into empathy. And Jeff, I agree with you in so many levels on this. And Greg, my district is similar to yours as far as the recognition of parapros, but I do believe you, Jeff, in we're the minority and not the majority. And when I think about everything that you see on YouTube or TikToks and things like that, it's I don't know if I've ever seen a TikTok on parapros and praising them, to be honest with you, right? And I think thinking about empathy, if I was a parapro, I guess I would feel a little left out and kind of forgotten or taken for granted, which is maybe the biggest crime of them all. And maybe it's that simple. I also like the idea, Jeff, that this is something that's tangible that we can address. And to be honest with you, it's a really big bark, and it's an important bark to make. And hopefully the bark's loud enough where support from the governor for these two bills can move forward. It does level the playing field, and I know the parapros that I work with, they work just as hard, and in many cases don't even ever get a prep because they're moving from one class to another. So, and I think that's, I think that's probably consistent in districts all around the nation. So I do support what you're saying and what you're asking for, Jeff, and I think we're a great body to move this forward. I think that's a great charge for us.
Thank you very much.
I raised my hand, but I will speak. 100% support for you, Jeff, and for what you are proposing. Down the road, I wonder if there would also be a possibility for support from our body for pending legislation related to mandated filling school library positions. And those three bills are 5909, 5910, 5911. Had that legislation been in place, I liken it to a vaccine. My library positions would not be eliminated. Lakeview District would not be, to the best of my knowledge, the only district to completely nix library programs. And I understand very well that MDE cannot advise districts on staffing and so on and so forth. But if the legislation had been in place, I would be a face-to-face / hybrid / high flex or whatever the model to be followed librarian.
Thank you, Margaret.
So I raised my hand too. I don't know if you all can see it, but I just want to say, Jeff and Gigi now, thank you for kind of consciously expanding our definition of what an educator is. I think we have to be really careful with that language. And Jeff, you're the first one who brought it to my attention when we worked on that first subcommittee initially, and we just changed the name in the first meeting from teacher to educator. So I obviously support the bills that you're, well, I mean, I need to read them, but they sound great. But I do think that this just highlights the need for us to understand that being an educator is a very broad definition, and we need to take that back into our spheres of influence. That's all.
Thank you very much, Deanna.
And so piggybacking off of that, I agree with that entirely. And I need to read them as well, but definitely I know how much of a difference the paraprofessionals make in our school, in our district every single day. You know, there was, you know, a little bit of panic actually from a couple of our special education teachers who said, wait a minute, I can't actually do this without my paraprofessionals. So how are they going to be factoring into what I'm doing with this distance learning and whatnot? So, I mean, they know, we know, I think the legislators need to know and policymakers need to know how important you are to public education. So yes, I'm with you.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
Ruth, I absolutely agree. And Jeff, I agree. I was a parapro before. I was a teacher. I don't know if I've said that to anybody, but I worked for several years as a parapro. But I think one of the really important parts that is that our parapros generally are part of our communities. Our parapros are the ones that are living with our families, especially in a district like mine where we're lower income. I can't do my job as an ESL teacher or as a bilingual teacher without the amazing resources in my immigrant community of the people who are language experts and their community experts. And my parapros are absolutely for what I do.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay, so one of the challenges of being chair is it's like being named the fun killer or the conversation killer. So I think we do need to stay on track. Again, I know a couple of us have commitments at 1. So it sounds like we have clear support, like maybe we even need more work to do. So Jeff, I think what I would recommend is if you could share the document that you read?
Yeah, I can put that in the Google Drive. Is that what you guys would like?
Well, however it works for Leah. So if you could share that, which had that very specific request, and are the 2 bills linked in there?
Yeah, I'll put them in there. I name them, but I'll put the links in there. I'll send it to you, Leah, and I'll put the links in the.
I've already linked the bills and the minutes from this meeting, and I'll also link the statement. So the easiest way to access them for everybody would just pull open the draft minutes from this meeting.
Thank you.
And that way they're recorded publicly as well. So.
Sorry, my daughter's asked me if she needs some cake that we baked last night.
Yes, she can.
That's what I said. I'm like, get away from me, eat the cake.
Even though I've piggybacked on Jeff, would it be appropriate for me to share links to the bills and documents that I mentioned, at least for the record of the minutes?
So I'm going to suggest at this point we focus in specifically on the issue of paraprofessionals, and I can put that on the we'll put that on an agenda as an action item. So we'll have a chance to review the bills, review the specific proposal. And so Gigi, if we can have a conversation kind of one-on-one about what timeline you're looking at, and then what specific actions, and then we can put it on, right? Again, this isn't my agenda, but that way we can just kind of keep the focus where it started. So we'll put that. So Jeff, does that work for you if I put it on as an action item for September?
Yeah, I just don't know, like, what would you guys want from me for the September meeting? I mean, with everything linked, I don't know if you got, I mean, I guess, should I be typing up as very specific action, or is it's pretty much stated in what I read, but I don't.
There would need to be a motion. So for instance, it could be a motion to request that Governor Whitmer and her policy advisors support, in the words that you used, and you guys can hammer out the wording that you're comfortable with at the next meeting for everybody to vote on. But it would be helpful if you came with a draft motion, I think, for people to reflect on. And you had really good words in there already with the request, and I can help you if you want, Jeff.
Okay, I thank you. I really appreciate that, and I thank this body for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Jeff. So Gigi, I do have my notes I'll call you soon, and we'll talk about what the steps are. Sorry.